Hi, everyone, and welcome back to My Movie Story. This is Brian here, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk to everyday people from all walks of life about three special films. Their all-time favorite, the film that changed their life or their perspective, and the film that they think everyone must see. So, if you've been watching so far, you'll see that every episode is very different, different people, different movies, and everyone has their own story for each of these films, which is really cool. So this is our 10th episode, so we've hit our first little milestone. We're 10 episodes in, so thanks everyone for watching and following us on Facebook and YouTube. And my guest today is Tonya Bruton from Texas. She's the marketing director for Truth Seeker Texas Radio out of Decatur, Texas, and she's the host of the Grit and Grace podcast. And Tonya uses her podcast to teach God's truth and highlight major issues of struggle in the church, such as mental health, trauma, and addiction. And she loves to interview guests with a raw and a real and relatable story. She really wants to know their story, and the focus is always to bring glory to God and hope to others. So that's very much the main part of her focus. She also likes to share her personal story of grit and grace and how she recovered and lives with mental health issues as a guest on other podcasts. So she's a podcast connoisseur. She's spoken many times online, and has been a guest on several other shows, and now she's a guest on My Movie Story. So they're all available on YouTube, on her YouTube channel at Grit and Grace Podcast. The name's just on the screen now. And she loves to meet new and interesting people. In her free time, when she's not doing all of that, she enjoys time with her family, the outdoors, music, reading, traveling, and of course, movies, which is why she's here today. So, Tonya, welcome to My Movie Story. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you for coming to us all the way from Texas. And I'm glad we're able to work out our time differences. And, it's one of the great perks of this show is that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we can hop online and get together and talk about our common love of movies. So, yeah, thank you for jumping on the show. And tell us a little bit more about your background with your podcast and some of the people you might talk to. Can you share a bit about that with us?
Sure, yeah. I mean, for one, I was thinking this morning how cool it is. Was morning for me, how cool it is that I get to get up this morning and get online with someone in Australia that yeah, I talk about movies. So I was like, this is just so cool that we can do this. But yeah, so in on my show, I meet people that all kinds of people. I interviewed someone last week who he's a cancer survivor, but he used to be an NBA basketball player, and at one point was a hostage negotiator. But
Wow.
so he comes on to talk about motivation and mindset, and then I have people come on that I meet that have overcome, like you said, addictions. Or I had a girl on that was we had recovery month here in September is recovery month, so I featured a lot of addiction shows and a group of people that have overcome that issue. And this girl is an alcoholic, and she had an incredible story. I don't want to give it away in case anybody gets on there to watch it, but it was like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But she had an incredible story, and it did really well. But it's just really neat that you can meet all these people, and I just like to
Mm.
share, stories of real average everyday people
Yeah.
that have gone through something and overcame, and they
Yeah.
can give other people, hope,
Yeah.
to go on with, people that are struggling. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's a really positive thing that you're doing with your podcast and yeah, what I've learned from podcasting is just the power of podcasts and that you really can talk about anything to anyone and there's someone out there who will benefit from it. And it's a great time we live in where we can do that. Anyone can host a podcast. And yeah, and how long have you been running yours for, Sonia?
oh, not long at all. So I started this last spring, in
Yep.
so March of this year.
All
So
right.
I
Yep.
had someone that I had known in the past that actually gave me the idea. And so I've prayed about it and just kind of thought about it for a little while. And I said, well,
Yep.
I never really thought about podcasting, and I've had to learn so much, and I'm still learning, like
Absolutely.
especially the technical side of things. I
Yeah.
mean, you're right. Anyone can do it, but there's a lot of uh, moving parts from just
Mm,
editing to the creative side, knowing what
yep.
you're going to talk about and things like that. So, and I don't wear all those hats all the time. So some
Sure.
of it, it's more difficult for me, but I do enjoy it. It's really, I feel like it's given me, it's like my purpose for right now in
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people that will reach out to me, like on my Facebook page or whatever, and say, I know you do your podcast or your show on addiction, or on this episode, really touched me. I have a son that's struggling, or I'm struggling,
Yeah.
and they'll ask me for advice or things like that. And it's not often, but that one person,
Mhm.
maybe that's what I'm supposed to do, make a difference in one person's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might only be like one person who hears it and really gets what that podcast is about, but that one person can then take that away and create change in other people's lives. So it can have that ripple effect. And yeah, we never really know how far that's going to go. So it's just
Mhm.
about putting it out there. Yeah. And anyone who would be thinking about starting a podcast, who's thought about it for a while, like what would be your sort of main tip or piece of advice for them?
Oh, well, I mean, just learn everything that you can.
Yeah,
Try to do it first. It's easier to learn first as opposed to learning as you go. There's so
yeah,
much information out there, especially, I mean, just YouTube and Google is full of information for starting a
absolutely.
podcast.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, that's
that would
great.
be it. Try to learn first,
Yeah,
because learning
definitely.
as you go, sometimes you fall on your face in front of people, but
Yep.
usually your listeners, I don't know about you, but they tend to be like in your corner, and
Mhm.
so they're cheering you on, and they
Yep.
they're 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 growing with you, so
Yeah,
they forgive your little goof ups or whatever. But
for sure. Yeah, and those goof ups are okay
yeah.
because like we're only human, right? Like, and I think
Right, yeah,
yeah, so and
exactly.
it's about having a go, and you do get better as you go, and I've had a few of my guests come on who've given me some tips and ideas on how I can improve the show and stuff, and I've tried to take those on board. So yeah, fantastic. Well, it's
Hmm.
a great space to be in, and it's great to be talking with another fellow podcaster. So so welcome, and I'm sure a lot of your other interests and skills and background are going to come up in these three films that we're talking about today. And um, speaking to you a little while back and telling me which three films you wanted to talk about, I've gone and watched a couple of them, and very much the theme across the three films is the relationships between mothers and their daughters, which is definitely a theme in all of these films, and I guess that's the theme for this episode. So to start with, Tonya, I thought we might talk about what you would consider to be your all-time favorite film, or one of your all-time favorite films. I think we all have more than one, but this one is a pretty special film, and I was very grateful to have the opportunity to watch this film recently. But it's all about you and your connection. So yeah, tell us what is the name of this film, and tell us all about it.
Yeah, so the first one I chose was Terms of Endearment with Deborah Winger, Shirley MacLaine, Jack Nicholson,
Yep.
Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
Wonderful cast. Wonderful
Fantastic.
cast.
Deborah Winger, Shirley MacLaine,
No, you don't need outsiders now.
No outside.
Jack Nicholson,
Please.
Oh yeah.
This is Garrett.
Oh,
The one.
pleasure to meet you. I've heard so much about you.
Yes, well, your mother's really been looking forward to this, too. So, go ahead.
Anything wrong, Garrett?
No.
I'll be over later. They're probably tired anyway and will get to sleep early, and I'd like to get to bed early.
Grandma! Grandma! Grandma!
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I love talking about movies. I mean,
Mhm.
this is really, your show is not really part of my niche or whatever you want to call it, but I came on here for the fun because I just
Yeah.
love movies, and
Yep.
it's hard to pick a favorite.
Very
But
hard. Yeah.
yeah, for like I was saying before, for entertainment, I'd probably go with mob or mafia movies. But
Of
when I
course.
want a good cry, I go to these three movies. Um, and and so like I told you before in our conversations, to me, it means something when a movie can when a movie can move me to tears and make
Mm.
me cry. And so, but there's more. I don't want to leave anyone thinking, okay, well, these movies are just all about, they're just all sad, and, and then you're just
Yeah.
going to walk away sad, because you don't.
Yep.
I don't anyways.
Yep.
But so I chose Terms of Endearment. And so I guess because the character, Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger's characters, the mother and daughter character in the movie, uh, is really similar to my. I'm glad my mom doesn't watch podcasts in Australia or listen. No, I'm kidding. But but it closely kind of mirrors my relationship with my own mother.
Right.
And and then it also, though, I have children now, so I have
Mhm.
grown children now, so I can really see myself in the mother sometimes and in the daughter. So it just depends on the scene, I guess.
Yep.
But the conflict, like there's a conflict between them. Like it seems like through the whole movie they're always nitpicking at one another, or at
Hmm.
least mom is to daughter.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so you almost have the feeling that they almost just don't like each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but deep down inside there's this deeper unexplainable bond between the mother and child, that no matter what, like
Mhm.
sometimes I feel like the worst mother on earth I have at times,
Mhm.
just over the years, whatever, some circumstance or situation, you feel like you failed, and but there's always, though, no matter what, gonna be some sort of primal connection between mother and daughter, I
Yep.
think, more than, no offense to the male, but maybe it's just my own experience, but I don't know if the male and child have that type of bond. I don't know, maybe they do. But so yeah, and then it's funny too, but the movie's
Yep.
funny.
It
The
is
movie's funny.
very funny.
The script, so the book, was written by Larry McMurtry. I think his name's Larry McMurtry.
Yep.
And he actually lives not far from me. He lives only, he's like 60 or about 70 miles from where I live. I
Oh,
don't know
right.
how much that is. Yeah.
Yep.
And so he has a bookstore over there.
Oh, wow.
But
Cool.
so I love the writing in the movie. I
Mm.
love just a little, like, so does this mean you won't be needing the baby any booties? You know?
Yeah. It's great dialogue.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, great dialogue.
for sure.
And yeah, the acting is great. I
Oh,
love all of
terrific
those. Those are
acting.
some of my favorite actors.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a great
absolutely.
story. I don't know where you want me to start. It's just kind of,
Oh, there's a lot to talk
yeah.
about, isn't there? Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And as I was telling you just before this episode, this one of my other little goals as a film reviewer is to watch and review every film that's won Best Picture at the Oscars. And I didn't really
Mm.
know much about the films of the 80s that had won Oscars, and I was working my way back through, and this won the Best Picture for 1983. And I didn't realize it was directed by James L. Brooks, who was one of the
Yes.
original creators of The Simpsons. He went on and made The Simpsons. And then he made a couple of
Yes.
other films like Spanglish and As Good as It Gets, which also had Jack Nicholson in it. And
Yes.
he has a very unique style of films, I think. And have you seen some of his other movies?
I've seen As Good as It Gets.
Yeah,
Spanglish, I have seen, but I didn't get much out of that. It was okay. It was okay,
yeah.
but
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not as strong as his other films, but
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it was normally this wouldn't be a film I would actively go and seek out, because I guess the how old it is and the title of it, I'm kind of, oh, okay. But then when I heard this one Best Picture at the Oscars, I'm like, okay, I'll check this out. And then you mentioned it was the film you wanted to talk about, so I'm like, fantastic. Now I've got all the reasons
Yeah.
to watch it, and I was just really amazed at the chemistry between Shirley McClane and Deborah Winger. Like they really seemed like they were mother and daughter. Yeah, and just you mentioned that the performances were really strong, and yeah, can you talk a little bit more about those characters, like who they are and what's really going on
Yeah.
there with those two? Like, why is there so much friction there, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think okay, Emma or Deborah Winger's character, she's real like to me, she's real earthy and like authentic. I
Mm,
think that's her attraction. She's not and I think that's just the way she was really in a lot of her movies for now that I think about it.
yep.
But it's not that her appearance is unattractive. She's an attractive woman, like, but she's not your standard, I guess, beauty as far as her looks. But she was attractive, her character, I believe, was attractive to Flap. That's such a strange name. But
Yeah, Jeff
Jeff Daniels'
Daniels'
character.
character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Danny DeVito is even in the movie.
Yeah,
But
he didn't have
yeah,
much to say, did he?
no,
He was kind of
but
just like this lost puppy that was following her around
yeah,
the whole time.
yeah. But I think the attraction to Emma was that she was natural. She was herself. She was
Mm,
fully herself. I mean, like, okay, when they first got married, and she's like, it's not attractive. She's got the allergies and the nose is running, and they're
yeah,
trying to have their honeymoon.
yeah, that's
But
right.
and then and I don't know if you caught like um all the actual terms of endearment, but like to me, one of the first ones is when he's like, you're my sweet ass gal.
Yeah, that's
Who
right.
tells her you're my sweet ass gal, which
Yeah,
is so cool. It's so corny. That's such a
yeah.
corny
What a
line.
compliment. Yeah.
But no, but she loved it. She's just like, oh my God, I love you so much. And of course they go have their scene and she's just like sneezing and snot running and
Yeah.
but but that's her, and then
Yeah.
she ends up like having 3 kids
Hmm.
and they had no business having kids. They're
No.
poor as dirt.
Yep.
Okay, that was me. That was me in real life.
Yeah.
Haven't you ever heard of birth control? I'm not trying not to give too much information, personal information, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I don't know if it's the setting, like it's set in Houston, Texas.
Yep.
I've spent so many years in Houston. I'm from Texas, so
Yep.
even the setting, the streets, when her and Jack Nicholson's character they go to have lunch, that's the Galveston Strip. Like
Ah.
I can
Yep.
everything's familiar to me.
Yep. Yeah.
I relate to just that southern vibe and
Hmm.
culture amongst all of them.
Yep.
But I think that's part of the conflict between Shirley's character, the mother, and Deborah is that Deborah is so loose. Like her
Yeah.
character is so loose and
Yep.
natural, and which
Hmm.
goes against the way Shirley's character was probably raised,
Yes.
right? In
Yeah.
her time, you weren't raised to act that way. You had to put on
No,
airs, be
that's
a
right.
lady, you
Yeah.
know. And
Absolutely.
but
Yeah. And yeah,
yeah,
Shirley MacLaine's character obviously comes from a different era because I didn't realize the film was over like this 20-year span. And I think the film ends, it's in the time it was made, 1983, but at one point you see a calendar in the background, it says 1979. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I didn't know when it was set. But the opening scene of the film I thought was really good, where it's when she's a baby and the baby's crying, and then in comes mum, and you hear just the voice of the husband in the background saying, "Don't go in there, don't go in there." And the mum is so paranoid. She's like, "Is she breathing? Is she breathing? Like, is my baby alive? Like, what's going on?" And then she wakes the baby up, makes her cry, and she's like, "Oh, yep, she's fine," and walks back out. And like that opening scene just tells you everything you need to know about that woman, doesn't it? Yeah,
yes,
spot on.
is exactly. So I mean, she has the maternal instinct for the child. I mean, she's worried about it, and it's worrying about the care of the child. But as far as the emotional care of the child, once the child cries, she's out of the room. She walks
Yeah,
out of the room. She doesn't comfort the baby.
no,
So
no.
as you see that though as a thread,
Mhm.
throughout the life, you're like she's concerned for Emma's welfare. But as far as the emotion, she's not going to be for Emma what Emma wants
Yep,
emotionally,
that's right.
you know.
Yeah, and but
until
obviously that
you get
changes.
closer until you get closer to the end.
Of course, yeah. And then I
Yeah.
think the Shirley MacLaine character, it's the introduction of Jack Nicholson's character that really mixes things up for her. And yeah, what were your sort of thoughts on their relationship and their scenes together? Because he sort of brought that lightness and comic relief to the film.
He
Yeah,
did. Yes. Yes, and I love it. I mean, I love him.
yeah, he's
He's
the
so
best.
sexy. Yeah.
He's
And
great.
he plays that part so good,
He
so
does.
well. But
Yeah.
yeah, he picks at her, but she's obviously got her own little naughty side. You know what I mean? Because
Mm,
it's attractive to her, even though
yeah.
she tells him, why do you do this to me? Why you always trying to pick at me? And he's like, well, you bring out the devil in me,
That's
and
right.
but obviously a part of her liked it,
Mm,
part of her liked it. But the
yeah.
scene when they go to lunch is incredible. She's like, all of this wouldn't have happened if you just hadn't gotten drunk. He's like, I'm not drunk
Yeah.
anymore.
That's right. Yeah,
Or
and I
when
really
they're in the
liked how they're
restaurant and he's like,
driving along
trust
the
me.
beach in his car, and she's driving,
Uh-huh.
and she just stops, and he just get flung off. He just gets flung off the car and tumbles into the ocean.
And then he gets his hand
It was
stuck in her
funny, really,
dress.
in unexpected ways, wasn't it? Yeah, like it was
Yeah.
very serious and moving, and it kind of emotionally tense. But then there was those random moments that were just hilarious as well. So I really appreciated that about the film, the way it used humor
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Right. Right. And it needed it. It really
Oh,
needed
absolutely. Yeah,
it.
because like you said, the way where the film goes towards the end, and it does get very emotional. So now I did put a little spoiler alert warning at the start of this episode for anyone who's watching this film and doesn't want to have the ending ruined for them. You might want to just skip forward a little bit, but it's hard not to talk about this film and not talk about the ending and what it sort of represents. So yeah, and probably one of the reasons why you come back to it, because it does it does make you cry, and it definitely struck a nerve with me. And but yeah, tell us about your thoughts on the direction the film went in, and how it ends. What effect did that have on you?
Well, uh, like I said, I get different perspective from the mom and daughter side, but the daughter, she lives her life, and she accomplished anything except for marrying a guy that ended up being unfaithful to her, and didn't come out to be much, I guess, society wise, himself, and having three kids.
Mm,
What did she accomplish in her life? And then she's gonna die, and then she has to, like that scene where she tells the doctor, I know I've got to figure out what to do with my kids.
yeah,
Oh, that just tears my guts out,
yeah,
because I'm a mother, and so to even think about having to have that talk with my kids, it just tears me up.
yeah.
And then but then, like, when Shirley's character Aurora, when she comes in to that whole scene of give my daughter the shot,
Oh
it's 10
yeah,
o'clock. She only has to hold out till 10 o'clock, and it's
yeah,
past 10. It's past 10. Give my daughter the shot. And that really gets me and rips me, because she's finally showing some emotion for her
yes,
daughter. Like,
yes,
I was raised by a mother. Now, my mother, like, I know my mother will cut for me. Like, she has my back. She loves me. She above anyone else on this earth. I can count on my mother. I know that. But there's the way she shows that is different. I didn't have a lot of hugs. I didn't have a lot of emotion from my mom. That emotional nurturing. And so Aurora wasn't giving that to Emma either. And I think Emma was fine with it. But
yeah,
but at the end, when she's like, she's doing that for her, and she's caring for her, she brings the painting into the hospital room for her,
yeah,
and she's nurturing her. And then, like, it's so delicate when she with that scene when she goes, is so delicate. It's
yeah,
like, oh, even talking about it right now, I'm getting chill bumps.
yeah,
And like I said, I've seen the movie a million times. I don't care. It still has that power, but it's so delicate how she goes.
yeah,
And but when Shirley says, that line when she says, and she finally, she's in flap, she just falls on him. It doesn't
yeah,
matter how their relationship either. Like, she falls on him, and she says, I can't believe it. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. She says, I actually thought that when she finally went, it would be a relief. because she always had to help Emma. Emma was always struggling.
That's right.
Emma didn't live up to her expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, and then now she's sick, and this is taking all this energy out of you, and that's what you do think, because life can be so hard, and it can be so trying sometimes, and that you think that when you just want it all to end, but and then you think it's going to be relief, but it's not. She said there's nothing like it. She just starts bawling. She's like, there's nothing like it, because there is nothing like the death of a child, and I do know that from personal experience. There is nothing like it. You cannot compare it. And the pain, dude, the pain.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I mean, but he wraps it up in a nice bow there at the end. When you have the scene at the funeral, and the little girl's so cute, and she's walking around, and Jack's still in the picture. Everything, life does go on. Time marches on. It's the circle of life. So you walk away okay. But I mean, and sometimes maybe you need to feel that emotion, but it's hard. I think it's just rare that a movie can have the acting, the direction, the production, the writing, all of that, the whole package, that it can be able to stand that test of time, and still be able to pull that out of you. There's something to be said about that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was the first film James L. Brooks directed, and early film for Deborah Winger. Obviously, Shirley MacLaine, Jack Nicholson were well-established actors by then, so they really carried the film. But it had me engaged the whole time, and it just obviously it moves quite quickly, because there's a lot of story to get through over this 10 or 15 year period, however long it is, or 20 years maybe. And it's very well done, and it is very moving at the end, and I absolutely agree with everything you've said about it. I think it had the same effect on me as well. And do you have a favorite scene, or the scene that stands out for you the most? I think you might have already mentioned what that could have been, but any other scenes that really stand out?
I don't know if my favorite. Okay, yeah. When in the grocery store. We didn't talk about John Lithgow.
No, we
one
didn't.
of my other favorites. So in the
he's
grocery
great
store,
in this film. Yeah.
When the lady goes, "Can I have the register key? She doesn't have enough money."
Yeah. Just to really
And
make
then
her feel bad.
Yeah, and so he comes up, and of course she's trying to put stuff back, and the little kids are looking at her, and she puts something in. "We're going in the wrong direction, honey." She's like, "I don't have to understand why I have to be so goddamn nasty," And so, and then he comes up, and he of course takes care of it for her, and he's like, "I know so and so from the Rotary, and I don't think he would appreciate you being so rude to customers." It's just like, "I wasn't being rude," and he goes, "Well, then you must be from New York."
Yeah. It's a great scene, isn't it? Yeah.
That's a great scene.
It
And
really
then
is.
she's going out to the car, and the kids is like, "Come on, Mom." And she's like, "Over by the car, honey.
Yeah.
Over by the car."
Definitely. Oh,
it's great. It's great.
I laughed out loud at that. I think, there was a lot of scenes that really just surprised me. And then, and it's two stories. It's the story of Emma, and this, like you said, this really salt of the earth woman who's just living one day at a time, and she's really out there. And then you've got Aurora, who's very sort of uptight and conservative, until Jack Nicholson comes along and messes everything up, basically. So it's a great film, and very, very moving. So definitely, anyone who hasn't seen it yet, even though we've talked about where it goes and where it ends, you can definitely still go back and watch it. It's like Titanic, even though you know how it's going to end, you can still watch it and experience the emotion and
Very
everything.
true.
Yeah, so that's my analogy. But great. All right, so we might talk about your next film now, Tonya, which is the film that you think everyone must see. And everyone has such a different film in this category. It's really interesting to hear what films people choose, and yours obviously has the theme of mothers and daughters, but it's different. It's one I'd heard of and was really iconic. Being a guy, though, it's not the film I would rush out to see, but I will watch it now. I haven't seen it yet, but it's your recommendation, so I'll definitely check it out. And maybe a few other guys watching this will put away that male machoism and be like, okay, I'm going to go check out this film. So tell us all about it. What is this film everyone should see?
Okay, well, Steel Magnolias really is a total chick flick. I mean, I gave you all chick flicks, really.
I'm gonna make you very happy.
I want a child of my own.
Your poor body has been through so much. Why would you deliberately do this to yourself?
Diabetics have healthy babies all the time.
You are special, Shelby.
Time has made them close. Life
She's gonna have a baby. Go get a doctor.
has made them friends. Steel Magnolias, the funniest movie that will ever make you cry.
Steel Magnolias, we have Shirley MacLaine again, and Julia Roberts, Olympia Dukakis, Daryl Hannah, and Sally Field, right?
Yes.
For Sally Fields, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and also I've been where they filmed that movie
Oh, right.
in Nacogdoches, Louisiana. So
Oh, okay.
I've been there too. And saw that. So that was really cool. But it's another one of my favorite films. It's really, they all three kind of have the same theme. You have a mother and daughter. So Sally Fields is the mother to Julia Roberts' character.
Right.
And then, I forgot Dolly Parton is in it as well. So
Oh,
Dolly
yes, yeah.
Parton, yeah. So Dolly Parton and the other characters are the supporting cast. Dolly Parton has the local hair salon, and they a lot of the scenes are in there. The ladies come to do their hair, and they're all chit-chatting about whatever. But the whole movie starts. Julia Roberts is getting married, and so there's a wedding, and they're getting ready for that. And then, but as it turns out, so you said I could talk as much as I want about the movie. So I'm trying not to be careful, but be careful. So Julia Roberts has an illness, and I relate to this because I think, if I remember correctly, I think she was just a diabetic. I say just a diabetic. I shouldn't say it that way. My grandmother was a diabetic, and passed from complications from it, because it can actually be very dangerous and cause a lot of complications.
Yeah.
So, but her complication in the movie, she ended up needing a kidney transplant. And so somehow the diabetes can affect your kidneys. But the reason I do relate to it is not due to my grandmother and that, it's due to my oldest daughter, who's an adult now, but she's had a kidney transplant. So I know like how fragile would be, I guess, the best word, how fragile that situation can be for people.
Yeah.
Some people, don't wait that long, or they do wait long. Either way, they get their kidney, all's well, ends well, and they go on with their life.
Yep.
But some people, like my daughter, she's actually had a liver transplant when she was 8 months old, and another liver transplant when she was 5 years old, because that one we had issues over the years. And then when she was an adult, had the kidney transplant. So she's had 3 organ transplants.
Gosh.
Crazy story.
Yeah.
But so she's been touch and go like over her whole years of life. Still to this day, I would not be surprised to get a phone call that she's in the hospital again. But so I understand the reality of a medical situation of any kind that could be very fragile. You never know.
Yep.
So having a daughter with that, I could really relate to Sally's character. But this one, like Terms of Endearment, is also full of comedy. I'd probably say more comedy than the other one. So like, for example, when they're getting ready to go to the hospital, so it turns out the mother, Sally Field, is going to donate one of her kidneys, and they're all getting ready to go to the hospital that night. And Julia has 2 brothers in the house, and her dad, can't remember his last name, but anyways, they're making jokes about kidneys and everything, and the mom's getting upset because she is what do you call it, a helicopter mom. Like, she's hovering over Julia, even though Julia is grown now. She's probably, I guess, maybe college age when she's getting married, about the normal time you move out and you get married.
Yep.
In the film. And so but she just makes sure that she's telling her, like, she's about to go off and have her wedding night, and the mother's like, be careful, and she doesn't want her to get pregnant. It could be bad for her health. I've had that same conversation with my daughter, who ended up getting pregnant, by the way, and had a child and did well, so thank the Lord. But so I understand that too, and of course Julia, towards the end of the film, or the arc of the film, she says that she's pregnant, and of course the mother, everybody in the whole film is excited, all the family is excited, this is a miracle. And she clarifies, the mother does, that she never said, that the doctors never said she couldn't get pregnant. They said don't, right? That you can't carry the baby.
Yeah.
So like the other film, I don't want to spoil it for you.
That's okay.
But
All good.
But like the other film, the daughter dies. She doesn't make it. She has the kid. It's too much on her kidneys, and she ends up on life support, and she passes away. So but it's not the daughter passing away. That scene didn't get to me. It's the funeral. It's the emotional outburst, I think, that I relate to. So like in terms of Endearment, when Shirley MacLaine's like, give my daughter the shot.
Yeah.
The emotional outburst. So the funeral scene is really good. I mean, it's even it's funny though. They throw like, she has like her moment and you're in tears, and right at the right time, like Olympia Dukakis and Shirley MacLaine, they come in with this comedy scene that you're now crying because you're laughing. So yeah.
Cool.
So
That's cool.
I mean, I think, it's not unbearable for a guy to watch it. It's still it's a great film.
Yeah.
But it just teaches you basically to, value the life that you have, value the relationships that you have,
Yeah.
value the comedy that life does throw at you. I mean, because it's a relief. It's a relief. Times can be too tough. So
yeah, even in those dark times, we can still find something to laugh about and smile about. And like what you just talked about, it sort of reminds me of like when you go to a funeral of someone close to you who's passed away, and obviously the time in between when they pass and the funeral is very difficult, especially if you're having to organize it and take a lead in that process. And then the service is always really emotional. There might be a few laughs there, but then afterwards, when everyone gets together, at the wake or the event after the funeral, and everyone's just having a good time talking about, the person and the memories, and just it brings people together, even though it's a sad occasion, and you can walk away, feeling a little lighter, because I guess you get that sense of closure. And I remember my young cousin who passed away many years ago. He was quite young, and then it was like a 3-week process before his body was returned home, because he passed away overseas tragically. And then there's a lot of people at his funeral. It was very emotional. And then his wake was at his local pub. So he was English, and his wake was at his local pub, and all his mates were there. And everyone was just having a great time and talking about him and laughing as if he was in the room. It was really, so yeah, kind of like what you sort of talked about, where it's like there's humor in those moments as well.
Yeah,
which is really powerful. Yeah, and do you know? Can I ask what the meaning of the title is? Steel Magnolias. Like what's that relating to? Do you know?
Yeah, so I think it was towards the end when Julia's character is no, okay, it's in the funeral. It's in the funeral that it comes in. They kind of explain it, but basically, well, for one, in the South, we have magnolia trees. And so, yeah. So there's that meaning where we get that from, the magnolia tree. And of course, in the movie, they're all in her house, in her yard. I used to have them in my yard. They're really pretty.
Nice.
But magnolia is what they're saying is like, she says at the funeral, it's funny, men are supposed to be made of steel or something, is what she says. But she says her husband couldn't even stay. When she was in the hospital, she was going back to mentioning, how she goes, yeah, they said you never left her side. She goes, yeah, and she says it's funny because men are supposed to be made of steel or something, but he couldn't handle it. The dad couldn't take it. But the mom, what she said, I was there when I was there when she was brought into this world and she took her first breath, and she goes, and I was there when she took her last one. And I just got chills when I said that.
Yeah, that's
and she's like, and I was there when she's like, I was there when she took her last one. And she goes, there's nothing more precious than to have that experience. Now, that's so tragic and so horrible, but it's also very, very, very tender and a very, very precious experience to have. I mean, that's something touching the other side of things that most people do not experience. And so, like I said, I mean, I have personal experience of that. So, that really, really touched me. So what she's saying though is like, while that tree is like a really strong tree, like the flower, I guess, is delicate, but the women in the movie, I mean, if you want to consider them the flowers as compared to women would be the flowers, they're magnolias, but it's the women who are actually made of steel. It's the women who can actually take hit after hit after hit after hit inside. Like that's where the title, I don't just bring up my podcast, but it just pops in my head. The title of my podcast, that's where I get that, the grit and grace, because to me, the grit comes from, I mean, I'm telling you, dude, I've had a hard life. But to me, you develop grit, every tragedy, every blow that you're able to take. And even if you do get knocked down, when you get back up, you develop this personal strength, this personal grit or character inside that you're able to withstand. Like, I mean, some people get jaded, and I've been there, done that at some points, but the real good balance is to be able to, like, not say, well, what next? What I'm used to it by now, but no, to be like, okay, today, I'm glad today was good. I'm thankful for that, right? But and if something does happen, I got this, and what I don't got with my grit, I got with God's grace. So that's where the other side of it is. I can't just depend on my own personal grit to get me through. I've got to have the grace of God or your higher power, whatever that may be for you. So Steel Magnolias is the fact that the women, while the flower is delicate, they're not. Those women can take a licking and keep on ticking.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. Now I understand. Now I understand what that means, and I think you explained it beautifully. And can you recall how this film came into your life? Did you originally see it when it came out at the movies, or later in life? Like, how did you discover it?
I don't think I saw it in the theater, but I did see it relatively soon when it came out. Sometimes, like, so here, when it comes out in theater, if you don't want to spend that much money for the ticket, it'll come out on DVD or VHS, whatever it was at that time. Pretty, like, within a couple of months, I think. And so, I watched it within that first year. But yeah, I sought it out because, like you, I will either seek out Oscar winners, Oscar-winning films, or Gold Globes, whatever. But always, if it's got one of my favorite actresses or actors in it, so I'm gonna have seen every Al Pacino film, every Robert De Niro film, so on and so forth. But so awesome. Julia, while I do like Shirley MacLaine a lot, Julia would have been the reason that I watched it and went for it. And it looked like a good, like I said, it's a chick flick, so it looked like I had a lot of stars in it, and it looked like an entertaining story, and it was. But it was the star power attraction that I went for that. It came out when I was, I was old enough to be able to, go seek it out and see it for myself.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and it's like I said, it's one I'd heard of, and everyone's like, oh, it's like the definitive chick flick. And I'm like, okay. But now I'm like, well, I'm not biased with any film. I'll watch any film once, and then it's about the story, and I think what it touches on is really important, and it's true to life. And again, another great mother-daughter sort of relationship movie. Beautiful, and really well put from you. I think your passion for that film really came through as well. So thank you for sharing Steel Magnolias with us. It was great. And I'll go and watch it in the next couple of days, and if I cry, I cry.
Let me know.
Whatever,
Let me know if you let me know. I want to know.
I will, absolutely. Well, terms of Endearment, terms of Endearment, that got me definitely. The ending just kicked me in the guts, but overall brilliant film, and another one. So for your last film, we kind of travel back in time a little bit to the 1950s, I believe. And we've had a few older films on the podcast. We've had It's a Wonderful Life, 12 Angry Men. We've had Citizen Kane, So yeah, it's really great for me and for our viewers and other guests to check out some of these older films. And this is another great one from the 50s, which I never knew existed until you told me about it. So thanks again for sharing another interesting film. So this is the film that you think everyone sorry, this is the film that really changed you, the film that changed your perspective on yourself or life or people or just the topic of mothers and daughters. So yeah, tell us what is that film, Tonya?
Imitation of Life.
Love? But you've always had that.
Yes, by telephone, by postcard, by magazine interviews. You've given me everything but yourself.
I'm white. White. White!
My mom turned me on to this film. Obviously, it's a little older for me too. So, but so this one, I don't know. I thought it was a great film, especially for its time. So not only are we talking about the mother-daughter relationship between, so you have you're talking about single moms too. You got two single moms, and so you got a white family, and then you've got a black family. But so the white mother and daughter, they have their own kind of conflict, because the mother is famous, or she's an actress or whatever, and celebrity or in that industry. And so she's not able to spend a lot of time with her daughter. But what I really focus on, of course, is the relationship between the black family and the black family, because the mother is okay. So the daughter is it's alluded to the fact that the daughter's actually mixed. The mom says your dad was practically white, is what she says.
Yeah.
So maybe he was mixed, but the daughter is able by her looks to pass. So what they called it here during that time in the United States, after slavery and everything, civil rights, everything, it was called passing, when you were able to get by on a lighter color of your skin and not pass as, so you could go use the restroom, right? Any restroom, or sit anywhere on the bus, or things like that. So passing was a thing. So the movie covers that topic.
Yep.
And so, but I didn't know that there was actually an earlier version from the 30s. So kudos for them even doing that back then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So and I was reading too that the lady that played the mother, the black mother, was actually one of the first roles in film for a black actress that wasn't playing a mammy. So so it was really kind of revolutionary story.
It was for the 50s. It was. I was impressed with how it addressed that topic very, very boldly. Yeah. Yeah, it was a very brave movie.
And I mean, and the cast is all led by women. So that even there, you got the gender equality thing going on for that time, for women to hold all the leads. Was pretty revolutionary. And then women of color even.
Yes.
I think the girl that played the daughter to the black woman was her actual in real life race was something like, I think it was Cuban or I don't know, but it wasn't African American.
Okay.
It was Jewish and Cuban. But anyways, it was a really cool opportunity for her. But then you've got the issue of the mother and the daughter and the conflict between them, and death.
Yes.
And dying.
Yeah.
Mothers, daughters, and dying.
Yes, absolutely.
and regret, I guess. In that movie, it's going to be regret, a huge amount of regret.
Definitely, and felt by every character. And I think the Yeah, there's not many male characters in the film. There's obviously the character, I think his name was Steve, played by John Gavin, who was like the, you
Hmm.
know, the reliable kind of charming guy who was always there. But all these other males
Hmm.
who were in the theater or film industry that the main character was in, they're all just sleaze bags basically, who were just trying to use her to get ahead in life. And yeah, and it was interesting how the film started, where she's like this aspiring actress. It's just her and her daughter. She's kind of just basically making ends meet. And then, you know, Annie, I think the name was of the black woman. Was it Annie or
Oh yes, yes, yeah.
Annie?
It was
Yeah,
Annie. Hmm.
the way
Hmm.
they meet and connect was really cool. And then they're just side by side. You know, she sees the white woman. What was her name? Lana or Laura? I think her name was.
Miss Laura.
Miss
Miss
Laura, yeah, I
Laura.
just watched this like an hour ago and I'm forgetting the
Oh
name
yeah,
already.
I know. Me too.
Yeah. So she
Yeah.
really saw her as an equal, which was great. And they were friends, and then the daughters were friends growing up. And yeah, and it was an interesting how the subplots about the daughters as well. And yeah, so yeah, I guess some of the other subplots and sub stories that are going on in the film, can you talk a little bit about them, and just to sort of give people a bit of a wider sense of what the film's about, like the different issues that are going
Yeah.
on? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, the story with Annie and her daughter
Mhm.
is just heartbreaking throughout the
Mhm.
whole film for
Yeah.
me. I mean, like this, there's a scene where she wants just to give her a hug. I mean, I just cried. I mean, look, the way, but you can't really, you kind of don't really hate the daughter and for what she's doing. I mean, you do, but you don't. I mean, I kind of
Mm.
get it.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, she's trying, if you knew what it was like, and I can't say that I knew what it was like. I can't say that. But I mean, I can only try to imagine
Yeah.
what it would be like. And if I had that choice
Yep.
to have a whole different experience of life, I mean, you're talking about a whole different life,
Mhm.
but as opposed to like loving your mother, you
Mm.
know, this is, but the thing is too, though, she didn't have to be so cold to her mother
Yeah.
in private. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it would still be cold to do that to her, and like in public, if you don't, you know, don't see her and don't act like you don't know me and everything, but in private, I don't know. It was a complicated story. That's
It
just real
was.
complicated.
Yeah.
That's real complicated. That's hard to judge. That's hard to
Absolutely.
judge.
Yeah,
And
definitely. It was a very unique. It was a very unique story in the fact that it was a black woman with a white daughter at the time where African American people very much were still working as maids and butlers, and you know there was racism was rampant. Things were sort of getting a little bit better. Like when the film started, it's set in the 40s, and then as Laura's career takes off, you see that montage where it's the years just go by, and it's like 11
yeah.
years later and she's this huge star, and things had improved a little bit, but there was definitely still that judgment there and that racism there, and which was made it very difficult for Sarah Jane, I think was the daughter of
Yeah,
Annie.
Sir Jane.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
to be her, to be who she really was. And then
Hmm.
yeah, and some standout scenes from this film for you, or like what are the scenes that are most memorable for you?
Well, okay, I already mentioned the when she was trying to hug her, when
Yep.
Mama was trying to hug her, and
Mm.
she's just like so tender. And there was a scene, was it the scene like when she was in the street, the Sarah Jane was in the street, and a guy had discovered her color. She's, no, I'm as white as you are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That was touching. And then but the funeral scene, of course, I'm gonna
Yep.
go to the funeral scene.
Yep.
Um yeah, every time I'll sit there and watch it, and I'll watch it again and again and again. Sometimes I will fast forward to Mahalia singing, and I
Yep.
love Mahalia Jackson. I'm a huge Mahalia Jackson
Oh,
fan.
that's who was
I mean,
singing at the end, was it? Yep.
yes,
Right. Yeah,
I
that was very
want,
moving.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, and so yes, I'll sit through it's kind of a long, that's a long scene, though. It's a
Hmm.
long funeral scene
Yeah, it
for
is.
a movie. Yeah, because they go through she sings the whole song.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, she sings the whole song. And I've always told my kids, I said, I want a funeral like that. I want a black choir. I want a horse-drawn buggy with the white roses covering it.
Yeah.
You know, but for this woman had a fabulous turnout for her funeral.
Yeah, she
and
did.
so they're in the church, and Mahalia sings, and it's very solemn. You're not crying yet, but you know, it's very solemn. And then they go outside, and there's the horse-drawn buggy, and excuse me, she's going along the cobblestone streets or whatever, and then the next thing you know, they're like, wait, stop. And then here she comes, and she's just like busted open those doors and just throws herself. She just flings herself onto the casket. She's like, I'm
very
sorry,
emotional.
Mama. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. It's too late, baby girl. It's too late. It's too late. Too little, too late. Too little, too late. And that hurts.
Very sad.
That hurts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
I
was watching that and I was wondering, like, what delayed her in getting there? Was she maybe watching from the background, kind of from a distance, and then it was like, hang on, now I can't let my mum go until I say I'm sorry, you know, which is kind of what she eventually did. And just the whole funeral procession was exactly what Annie described wanting to have when she was, you know, lying in her deathbed. And it was an amazing turnout, and the people are on the street were just like, oh, what's going on here? And that's how she wanted to be remembered, you know, wasn't it? Because she'd spent her whole life as this humble servant who put Laura and her family first, and then it was like, I'll be remembered at the end of my life, and she had this huge, like you said, this huge turnout of people, and it was very, very moving.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sarah Jane did what everyone does. I think she took her mother's life for granted. I think that she probably in the back of her mind assumed that there was always time, that what she was worried about was right now. And how do I survive right now? How do I navigate the world I'm in right now? Because things were very bad in here that at that time. I mean, it was, people were getting beat and like hosed down and things, like in some places and some situations. You never know what it was, more than just a look, you know, or a slur sometimes. So she was trying to navigate the here and now. And so sometimes, you know, it says we always hurt the ones we love, is a saying. And sometimes we're able to do that, I think, because we're able to shut off temporarily the guilt or that natural thing in us that keeps us from hurting somebody we love. We're able to, I think, temporarily to not listen to that voice for survival mode, right? For whatever right now is calling for. Because in the back of your mind, I always have time. Like even now, I think my mother is 62 years old. I've got time. I got time. I mean, she's probably going to live into her 80s, right? I've got 20 years. I got time. Which me and my mother, we talk all the time. I don't mean to say that, but I'm just trying to hypothetically put myself in that situation.
Sure.
So with her, I mean, Annie basically died of a broken heart. So she died before really she naturally should have, I think. But either way, I think Sarah Jane probably thought I always have time. And then once she realized that she didn't, it was too late. And I don't really think that it was a matter of I can't let mom go without saying sorry. I don't even think she was thinking about it. I think her guts were ripped out. I think her guts were literally ripped out, and that was just her response. You know, I don't think it was about any type of closure. I think she really was clawing at the cabin. I mean, I'm sorry, the casket, with the soul in intense pain inside of her, wishing that she could literally tell her that.
So much she didn't get to say because she was in denial of who she was and who her mother was, and you know, it was a huge burden that she had to live with, you know. And and I really liked the direction the film went in, how it focused firstly on Laura and Annie as mothers of these young girls, and then it focused on the girls when they became teenagers and their identity and everything. And then so it was and obviously it was addressing, you know, things like racism and race relations and identity, but it, you know, in a very different way. I didn't really know what to expect with this film, you know, and the title, after I saw the film, I kind of understood what the title meant. But yeah, what was your take on like the title? What do you think Imitation of Life was sort of referring to? Was it, in your opinion, what do you think that means?
Well, like, okay, from Sarah Jane's perspective, I think it would be that she was cold to her mother and turned her away in order to make a life for herself.
Yep.
Some sort of life. The best that she wanted to make the best one that she could make, which is why she chose the past. So, but I think it turned out to be sort of an imitation of a life, right? It wasn't a life at all because it wasn't her true life. It wasn't her true story. She wasn't living her authentic self. So I think it was sort of, like I said, a play on words for sort of like, you're not living your real life.
Yeah.
That, I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. That was
that's
kind of
how that's kind of
how
what
I
I
took
got
it as
from
well. Yeah.
it.
And even Laura would, you know, you weren't always sure when she was being real and when she was acting, you know, so
Right, that too.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Good point.
And then, and Annie like appeared to Laura to be this humble servant, but had this whole other life in the background. And that was reflected in the amount of people who showed up at her funeral. And then
that's true. Yes.
yeah, so she had
Yes.
this sort of secret life, and she was just playing the role of the maid, you know. So everyone was
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
something else than what they really were, you know. So yeah, that was kind
Right.
of what I took away from it, which was interesting. It was an
Mm-hmm.
interesting take on the topic, and yeah, very ahead of its time, I thought, for a film released in 1957, and you know, a very very smart film. Like it felt sort of modern and fresh, and you know, felt
Yeah,
like,
because
wow, this has aged well. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we didn't have our civil rights movement until the 60s.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
yeah, it was really cool. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, so just I guess in recap of the three films you've chosen, Tonya, I think obviously it's about mothers and daughters, the relationship, how daughters perceive their mothers, how mothers perceive their daughters, the differences between them, the similarities between them. And I, you know, from my own observation of my wife with her daughters, our daughters, my mum with my sisters, like I can only observe. I don't fully understand the mother-daughter bond or relationship, but this film definitely gives a different perspective on that in interesting ways, and yeah, so three really great films on that theme. So you know, thank you for bringing us your stories for these films. And just before we go though, any other honorable mentions in the sort of mother-daughter genre, I guess? Any other films you could think of? Or
Well, okay, one right off the top of my head. It wouldn't be mother-daughter though, but I was gonna say when you were talking though, it really could be because I've thought about this before I came on too. It could be fathers too. I
sure.
mean, you know, I have a complicated relationship with my father as well, so sometimes I see both. So I would say though would be son and mother. I don't know if you've seen the Hillbilly Elegy.
No.
It's a Netflix movie directed by Ron Howard.
Okay.
Ooh, excellent,
All
excellent.
right.
Amy Adams plays in it. She
Okay.
plays the mom.
Yep.
And I believe it's based on a true story, I believe.
Right.
But the Glass Castle would be the next one.
Okay.
So yeah, Woody Harrelson plays the dad.
Right.
But yeah, and the mother, what is her name? She was in The Impossible.
Oh,
I think she's an
Naomi
Australian
Watts.
actor. I think,
Naomi
yeah.
Watts. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So she plays the mom.
Oh,
And
right.
that's a real good one. It's called The Glass Castle.
Oh, okay. Cool. I'll check them
That's a
out.
good one
Yeah.
for a parent child relationship type thing there.
Yeah.
No one dies in those films.
Oh, good. Good
So
to know. All right.
no one dies.
Because I think after these three films, it's like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty heavy.
yeah,
Yeah.
uplifting, but also emotionally, yeah, impacting as well. But you know, it's important to
Yeah.
experience these films, you know, and for someone who's been through something similar, you know, it helps you reconnect with that and it reminds you that hey, you're not alone. Other parents, or mother, daughters, fathers, sons have gone through this as well, so it can be quite therapeutic. And you know, each film also has its humor and its lighter topics as well. So yeah, really great choices. And so just sort of the last sort of question I like to ask people, and I think you might have some interesting ideas here, is you know, where could movies go? You know, like future of movies, or is there certain topics or issues that you would like to see explored in a movie or anything along those lines?
No, I mean, I would just say like I wish they would bring them back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
classic movies. I mean, I think they're getting a little, and TV as well, shallow.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So, or just trying to hurry up and get something made very quickly.
Yeah.
So you're missing some of the quality from that we used to have in movies.
Yes.
They don't. So like to me, a real good movie just comes along now every once in a while,
Yeah.
maybe once a year.
Yep.
So
Yeah. No, I
yeah.
agree with you. Like, since streaming has come along and it's sort of
Yes.
film and TV is now more sort of content, not necessarily an original story, but more like
Right.
something that can be made quickly, watched
Yes.
quickly, and then people move
Yes.
on and go to the next thing, you know? Like, it's that
Right.
fast,
Yes.
digestible sort of content now. So, which means it lacks a
Yeah.
bit of substance. Yeah, 100%.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you. Which is, I guess, sort of reflective in the movies we've had all of our guests talk about, that we haven't had anything really new or recent mentioned yet. But who
Mm-hmm.
knows? Like, there might be some film that comes along that really surprises people, and we've seen a couple of films this year like that have really broken some new ground. And you know, I feel like maybe movies are tipped for a bit of a comeback. I think TV's stolen a bit of the thunder recently, and there's definitely some great TV shows out there. But there's also just a lot of crap as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, some of the streaming services are doing okay sometimes. Like I said, I mean,
Mm,
Netflix made the Hillbilly Elegy, or it's just not, no, it's Hillbilly Elegy. But didn't Netflix also did The Irishman, which I
yes.
thought was great.
Yep.
Yeah, that was that was a good film.
Yes.
But that was
Yes.
one film, and since Netflix has been streaming all these years, that was one film,
Mm,
you know.
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done, and that was,
Yes.
I would consider that new. I mean, it's
Yep.
still, I mean, it's probably a few years old now, but I would still
Yeah.
consider that
Only
new.
2 or 3 years
Yeah.
old, I think, but
Hmm.
starring two of the actors you mentioned before, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. So just quickly,
Hmm.
a couple of other honorable mentions from Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. What films of theirs do you like the most, or probably watch the most?
Oh,
There's so many, isn't there? Oh
Goodfellas.
yeah, so good.
One of my all-time favorite movies. Now, yeah,
Fantastic.
so if I wouldn't have went the route that I went with you on this one, it would have been Goodfellas. It would have been Godfather. Probably the first one.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so yeah. And
Groundbreaking. Yeah.
then yeah.
Yep.
And The Irishman was good. What was that one? Oh, it was really good. Where it was it called The Informant? With where Jack Nicholson turned out to be an FBI informant, and Mark Wahlberg's in it, and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, The
I don't remember
Departed. Yep.
The Departed. Yeah, The
It's so good.
Departed. That was
So
good.
good.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
another Martin Scorsese film. Like, he's just
Yeah. Yeah.
fantastic. And
Yeah.
his
So
next
I'll
film
watch
coming
anything.
out,
I'll watch his films. Yeah.
he's great, yeah. And his next film
Hmm.
coming out this year, Killers of the Flower Moon. Have you seen
Yeah.
the trailers? That looks really good. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, Leonardo DiCaprio obviously makes very solid films. Robert De Niro's in it.
Hmm.
It's about
Hmm.
these Native American Indians who are being murdered for oil, basically. So that's going to be a good one. I think we'll be hearing about that at awards time this year, as well. So
Another Robert De
mm.
Niro one that I was trying to think of. I didn't mention Awakenings. Did you see Awakenings?
Yes, that's right. I haven't seen it for a long
Yes.
time, but that's a great one. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
And yeah, and with um
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the scene where he's like, I'm grotesque. I'm grotesque. Don't look
Mhm.
at me. Don't look at me. Oh,
Mhm.
that's a good one. That's a good
Yes.
one. That makes you cry
Yeah,
too.
really good film. Really good film.
Yeah.
The two of them, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, just, so many great films. And maybe we'll have you back in the future and we can do an Al and
We
Robert
do those
special.
movies. Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. Email
Absolutely,
me.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like you've probably seen Heat, I imagine.
Mhm.
Oh, so good.
Mhm.
Like we could have a
I
whole
love
episode
that.
on Heat.
I love Val Kilmer. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So many movies. There's
Yeah,
so many movies to talk
yeah,
about. Like we could just go on forever.
for
But
sure,
yeah,
for
but
sure.
this has been great, Tonya, and thank you very much for coming on and sharing your stories behind your three films. And you know, mothers and daughters, complex relationships. They're close. They change over the years, and I think each of these films really captures that really well. And from how I haven't seen Still Magnolias, but from how you described it, I think that sounds like it's really gets it right as well. So I will definitely check it out. And
Okay.
yeah, so thank you again for coming on the show and being a guest on My Movie Story. It was great to have you.
It was great being here. Thank you so much, Brian.
My pleasure. Awesome. Okay, well, thanks for being here. Take care.
All right. Bye.